Kaboom! Hey folks, Ty, BreakerCulture, BenchClear Media team. Really excited to have a returning guest on the show. We had Eric, founder, CEO of the Loupe app. We had him on about 3.5 months ago, and it was a great conversation then. This is when they were first starting, and here they are about 4 months later, and they're doing some incredible things in the hobby. I've heard from multiple breakers, multiple users, how awesome the experience has been with Loupe. Yeah, I think Eric explains this in our conversation, but they're trying to create this idea of a tech overlay on top of a traditional hobby experience. So blend the two worlds of technology and the hobby shop experience. And obviously right now it's very oriented towards breakers, but the experience, the social interaction, the community that they're facilitating has been second to none. It truly is a one-of-a-kind app. So we're going to break down roadmap. We're going to break down kind of the things they've seen happen over the past few months. We talk a lot about, especially at the beginning, his thoughts on tokenization, NFTs, kind of the digital world and how they play in it. And we talk about really where we think the hobby is going. And he has some really good perspectives. So I think you'll enjoy the conversation. Be sure to use the link in the show notes, both on the podcast and here on YouTube, to download the app. If you're an iPhone user, as of today, go download it right now if you don't have it on your phone and start participating and just look at the experience and see the community. I think you'll love it. Click that link. It helps us measure the impact we can bring to Eric and the Loupe team. Also, as an Android user, you're going to hear this during the interview. In a couple weeks here, you're going to be able to get that app too. So use that same link and download it for your Android phone. We'd appreciate you showing your support for Eric. And I'll just leave you with this final thought here. At the end, I show off this great shirt, but here you go. You can see BenchClear Media. For those that are on the podcast, click the YouTube link, or just go to benchclear.us and click the shop button. And you can visit our store and you can buy a shirt for yourself. We have BenchClear Media shirts that are basketball, baseball, football, non-sport branded. And it's a great way for you just to support us and the content we're putting out. And by golly, you get a great shirt. We didn't skimp on picking good shirts. I know they're a little bit more costly than maybe what you're used to, but we get canvas shirts and they are incredible material. One of our producers is a t-shirt savant. And when I sent it to him, he immediately texted and goes, "Oh yes, you did it right with these shirts." All right. Enjoy the conversation with Eric and have yourself an amazing week. Thanks. Eric, how you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Obviously being in the mountains, I feel bad for you being stuck in that little room there, but got better scenery tonight. You were outdoors last time. Now I have to go outdoors this time.
Yeah. No, I'm fully indoors now. I'm house trained.
Are you moved in completely then? You settled?
Yeah, well, for the most part, my office could probably use some decoration, but yeah, in the new apartment since last time we talked, kind of Loupe HQ home office, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you have one of those like vintage glowing signs outside your door, like now open, Loupe, kind of fluttering in and out?
It's funny you say that because my girlfriend actually got me it's not neon, but it's like a light up Loupe sign with the logo. And I actually use that for my breaks now. It's great. So whenever I want to feel fancy and official, I turn that on. There's a nice orange glow that takes over my office.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, the last time we spoke, the hobby was doing great, as has been the last year, obviously. Mm-hmm. What's your take on just the hobby itself right now? If you were kind of summing it up for people, what would you say about it?
It's still, I mean, it's still growing. And I think there's kind of an awkward adjustment period that a lot of people are still getting used to. We're seeing Panini's prices go up on retail, which has been huge. PSA's prices just went up. There's just a lot more business coming into the hobby overall, which I think is good. Like we saw it with streetwear years ago. We're seeing a little bit in NFT right now. But for a market to really grow, we're getting all those things now. And there's going to be an adjustment period. And I think you'll see it balloon a little bit, and then it'll come back down a little bit, and adjust along the way. Just so much movement. I mean, you're seeing the news with Golden. There was the purchase of Collector's Universe and PSA included with that. So overall, it's just incredible the amount of news to like keep up with right now of what's going on in the hobby.
Has there been anything that's kind of surprised you in terms of like the big news releases or trends? You're kind of like, oh my gosh, really?
The amount of fractional in this space kind of surprised me, because you have Otis and Rally, which kind of do like multiple things, and then you have collectible, and then Dibs just came out recently with, I think they're in beta right now, and there's probably going to be at least a couple more. I don't really understand fractional. Let me rephrase that. I understand it. It doesn't appeal to me, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I want to own the whole card, and if I need to own a bunch of cards, let them increase in value, sell those, and get like my Grail card, so be it. But I'm actually surprised how much fractional has taken off and like built an audience where you have like that Mickey Mantle card, and like dozens of people buy into like part ownership of this single asset. Has been really interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. The funny thing about fractional, we've had Ezra on, the CEO of Collectible, and they obviously have a great story, but there's only a finite amount of items you can get, right? Eventually, when you have 5 fractional share organizations, you can only acquire so much stuff for like all the fractional owners have the big stuff kind of in their collections, in their portfolio.
Right.
I agree. We're going to probably, like you just said, balloon out and then probably see some consolidation or disappearing acts.
Yeah. And that's honestly expected for any market that's going through what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Like, I feel like you have the mountains are a nice touch in itself, but you have like such good lighting, and I'm like here with my pale screen reflection.
Oh, please.
That's my next office upgrade, is a nice little ring light.
That's right. No, most people are probably listening on a podcast anyway. So now they're gonna go click the YouTube link just to see what you look like. So there you go. Way to bring attention to yourself.
I just painted a big target. I'm gonna go look at this jerk.
That's right. Well, we're gonna get into Loupe here in a little bit because you have some crazy cool stuff going on. I can't wait to talk about. But you mentioned NFT, and I'm curious what your take is. I mean, crazy surge in activity in the Topshot world. And then it's pulled back the last week or so. Players and all kinds of other personalities were kind of promoting Topshot. What is your take on the whole digital crypto NFT world within sports cards right now?
NFT overall, like just NFT as an asset class, is really interesting to me when I think of things like the metaverse. So when you have a virtual reality world and there's assets that have value and there's a finite number of them, whether they're closed assets or you're in-home, whatever you're doing in that virtual space, I think NFTs are going to be incredibly valuable there. We're kind of in that awkward space right now where NFTs don't really have utility. Like it's an asset you hold, but how do you show it off? Where does it live on the platform or in your wallet? How do you show it off? And for me, it's interesting watching Topshot blow up because it's the pure volume they're doing is incredible, but you're seeing, almost 200,000 people swarm in to buy packs. And when they open those packs, there's, 3 moments. And I bought into a couple right before it took off. I've been able to get one since. But what I worry about is so much of that transaction, or the transaction volume, is driven by people buying to immediately flip. Like, they're buying because it's valuable to then flip to a much smaller number of people who are just going to like sit on it, and they might be seeing it as a longer term investment. So it feels like Topshot is driven, the fervor is driven heavily by speculators who want to get the money and exit as fast as possible on any particular release. And I don't think that's necessarily sustainable. It's wildly interesting to me. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there's people like, there are some people who hear like the smallest of criticism about something, like, you hate it. Like, no, it's super interesting. I just don't know if what we're seeing today is what we're going to see 6 months from now. So yeah, I definitely want to keep my eyes on it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. No, I think you just nailed it, right? I think the argument against physical sports cards and digital Topshot moments, I don't even think you can even have the argument now and make a strong case for Topshot, because like you said, there's zero utility. Like, you cannot show it off. You cannot put it in your collection. It's just really hard to comprehend that for a lot of people still.
Yeah. And I'm sure either people will come up with solutions for that, or as you see the next Topshot evolve, they'll start thinking about that. But again, as we think like 5 to 10 years down the line, I think of like, what happens when Fortnite expands what Fortnite is in this like digital realm, and now instead of printing infinite number of digital goods, now there's only 1,000 of these things, and it's supported by NFT. And that's where I think the utility value skyrockets as people invest in digital spaces.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. You being a developer and having that kind of mindset, do you see just an enormous amount of opportunities in that world, and specifically in the sports card space? Do you kind of think, I'm sure you lay in bed and think, gosh, you could do this and this and this?
That's the risk of running any company or product, is you need to know when to put the blinders on and have tunnel vision and not get distracted. Because like, there's a reason we did Loupe, and there's a reason why we have the roadmap we do. And it's very, I've seen it a million times in the startup space. It's very easy to get distracted. It happened with crypto and ICOs 4 to 5 years ago, when like Ethereum and Bitcoin had that first kind of like big ramp up, and you saw startups left and right going, oh, well, we pitched everyone on this, but we're going to do an ICO and have our own coin. And, look what happened to 99% of them. We definitely see opportunities in NFT and crypto in the long run. And, there's plenty of articles to read about it, but there is an ecological impact when you're doing that much computing power for pretty much every single transaction. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Just like mining Bitcoin, like, uses an immense amount of power. And I think a lot of people who are super in the NFT and, they're in that world where they're going to be flipping. So I feel like this has just turned into an NFT podcast. But my last bit there is, I do think there's a lot of people who are just so honed in on, I'm going to make a lot of money on this, that they're willing to turn a blind eye to like something we should actually be looking at, is like, how much power and resources are these things actually using, and will that have a long-term effect on, whether it's power grids or the environment. And I feel like there's just been so little actually talked about in that space in regards to it.
Well, I just want to pause real quick and reflect on this being the first sports car podcast to ever have the statement "ecological impact of processing power" said. That sentence, we just lost 99% of the audience. Guaranteed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Kidding with you. Awesome. No, that's actually a really good perspective. I've never even thought about that angle of, it's just an insane amount of resources going in just to push out this stuff there's no utility for still, right?
Yeah. And I'm by no means an expert. I mean, I don't claim to be, but it's really cool to read about.
Yeah, no kidding. That'll be one to get me to sleep one night for sure. All right, so let's dive into Loupe here. So much to talk about. So when we last talked, and this is great because I remember after the interview, I had multiple breakers reach out to me and say, "Hey, we got in touch with Eric, and we're breaking, or we're going to be breaking." And then 2 weeks later, like, "Holy crap, this is incredible!" You were at the very early stage of releasing and going live.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of give us the story of the last 3 months, the last quarter, kind of where we were at to where we are now, and how are things looking? Paint the picture for folks. So it looks like it's going great.
It is going very great. The last 4 weeks 4 months feels like 4 weeks. It's been massive. We've grown 50 to 100% month to month the last 4 months.
Wow.
We're up to about 20 breakers, maybe 12 to 15 that are like regulars that like stream multiple times a week, and we have a couple that are more like specialty. Every 2 to 4 weeks they come in and do like a big event, and then they disappear and refill their inventory and come back. So it's been amazing. We are still bringing breakers on, but we've slowed the pace a little bit because we're basically gearing up for Android, which is coming out. It should be the 3rd or 4th week in this month, actually March. Yes, it's March. Again, it's been a blur. So we should have Android out, whether in beta or a full production launch. You'll be able to have it on your Android phone. And when we do that, we have so many initiatives in place to like promotions, growing our audience, making people aware that we exist if they didn't know today, as well as we'll be ramping up more of our sellers. And we do maybe 1 or 2 a week, but we're really, really focused on scale. So I've said this in a couple other interviews.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm really worried about somebody coming and going, "Hey, I have 5 boxes of Panini Prism. I want to sell it." And my first 2 questions are, is that your only inventory? Like, how are you going to refill your inventory?
Yep.
And also, have you ever done live breaks before? And if either of those answers is no, I'm probably not going to add them to Loupe for now. Like, we have plans to expand what we're going to allow on the service.
Yeah.
But, I don't want somebody to come in and their first experience with Loupe is somebody who's never streamed before, who's maybe still figuring out what they want to do with their breaks, as well as, that the person knows how to handle shipping at scale. So what happens if you immediately sell out of all your product in one day, and then the next day or 2 you have to package up? Like, do you even have the resources and time for that? So that's what we really look at. And I think we've done a really good job for our first couple waves of breakers we've added.
That's awesome. What's been kind of that aha moment during the last 4 months where you're like, oh, we really have struck a chord here. This is good.
The Super Bowl Sunday, we had 2 big promotions on Super Bowl Sunday, and I was skeptical because I'm like, people are going to be getting drunk at like 2 a.m. Well, that's not Super Bowl Sunday. That's a different holiday. Like maybe 2 p.m. in the afternoon, people are starting to drink and hang out with their friends. And again, it's still a pandemic, so we just really weren't sure how it was going to go, and it was huge. We doubled like our next best day on the service. Like, it was just hugely successful to the point where I was like, all right, we already knew we were on to something.
Yeah.
But getting the right messaging together and doing something different really, really helped. And I think we even had a lot of new buyers come in that day because it was just like, hey, I'm home all day, excited about sports. I have nowhere to go. I'm going to get on Loupe and I'm going to buy cards. And it was so much fun. And the whole team was just like floored at the response we had from the community. And so we've really just been going full on since, like, how do we just keep growing this? How do we release new features that people want? Not only that buyers want, but also the sellers, like what helps them sell cards faster and easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I would have not expected Super Bowl Sunday to be that day, but I guess as a Chiefs fan, I started to disconnect after halftime. So it was a brutal day for us.
Maybe that was I won't say anything beyond that.
Yeah, it was. I had my my green screen background was Patrick Mahomes, and I had to just remove it because bringing some frustrations. So when you say features, what are kind of the things that folks are requesting that you've kind of put in place the last 4 months that people should know about, or maybe what is the one that sticks out? You're like, everyone was requesting this, and I just didn't see it.
The one that probably surprised me the most was putting the USPS tracking number directly into the app. Oh. So when you go to your purchase history, yep. Now there's a little truck, and when you tap it, it'll pull in the USPS info. And that was, I don't know, like an afterthought. Like, okay, it's a couple people mentioned it. And then there was an additional request of, before it was copy, if you were the seller, you'd copy the tracking number and paste it into a little dashboard we created for you. And one of our sellers, Ecto Selecto, went, well, everything's on the phone. Why don't you let me just scan the USPS label? So, you tap the order, your sale history, you tap it, scan, tap the next one, scan. And when he said that, it was like the galaxy brain meme. I was like, man, you just like blew my mind. And it took us like 20 minutes to implement. It really was. And like once we did that, all the sellers were like, wow, you just saved me like an hour of my time shipping product and putting the tracking info in. So, just little things like that surprise me. But a lot of the features we have coming up feel really big. So something like anticipating when a stream is coming. So let's say you join 3 p.m. in the afternoon, there's no stream, but you'll be able to see what's scheduled in the app and like anticipate it, sign up for it, maybe see what they're selling. And another one is, forgot my own product. What was it? I think we talked about this. I think we talked about this on the last stream. Yeah. Which is the viewing the stream after it's done. Yeah. So going into your purchase history, tapping on it, and actually going and watching the video to confirm what you got, or maybe you had to leave the stream before your cards were pulled. You can go back and watch. We do save all the videos. We don't just surface them in the app right now. We'll get to that very shortly, like probably by the end of the month. And then beyond that, that's kind of like phase 1 features for us. So, first 5 to 6 months of Loupe are just developing and shipping phase 1. So all the things you'd kind of expect, fixing bugs, building out our infrastructure, hiring for some roles to like build out the team for scale. Phase 2 kind of starts in, I'd say April or May. I feel like I'm stating like MCU phases of movies here. Yeah. So phase 2 is really where we look at, okay, phase 1 was all the things you kind of expected. Phase 2 is where we're gonna hopefully like blow your mind and offer you things that you never even thought you would have in the kind of card and breaking hobby in general. Like we're gonna bring the heat, so to speak, in phase 2. And I think, once people see what we're building and get to use it, like this is going to be a very, very valuable app to everyone in the hobby. Because right now, if we haven't accepted you as a seller yet, or you just don't care for live breaks, there's not a lot of reason right now for you to use Loupe outside of some of the blog content we do, which I think is super, super valuable. But again, phase 2 is kind of like, what you think Loupe is will change drastically once we get through phase 2. And then phase 3 is even crazier. So it's going to be a really big year ahead for us. And I just hope that everyone stays tuned and keeps their eyes on us, because we really want to make a big impact on the hobby.
I can already picture it'll be like episode 1972. You're going to have this long gray beard and you're going to be telling us in phase 48, we're going to have something.
Like an anime character.
That's exactly.
Like 1,000 episodes, and like by the end of the arc, I'm like a completely different character.
Like you're going to look like Gandalf.
Hell yeah.
All right, so I'm very curious about this. Because I'm sure it's hard for you. You mentioned this earlier as an entrepreneur, especially a developer. It's probably easy to be distracted, not just from all the next best things, but really of what your focus is. So when you think of like phase 2 and it being a little bit different, right now the core is breaks and creating a community for breakers and making it easy to do breaks.
Yeah.
And I remember last time we spoke, you thought about the opportunity of having profiles and your want list and like all these things that you could do that would be super easy and if you had one app to control all, it'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance it out? I mean, when you're thinking about future, how do you integrate the two without losing focus of what your core is right now?
Yeah. So I think if you really want to go like inside baseball on this, as a business, to be frank, to like sustain a business, you have to be driving revenue. So the way we look at that right now is like, how many unique users and unique buyers do we have on the platform?
Yep.
And within that pocket of users we have today doing those behaviors, how many breakers and sellers can they sustain at the same time? Because if you have way too many buyers, you have people coming in and they can't do anything because the product's sold out. Or on the flip side, if you have way too many sellers and, again, it's supply and demand.
Yep.
If you have too many sellers, then they're just sitting there doing nothing. So it's a really good balance that we're pulling right now is, are there people in rooms being social, talking about cards? That's really good for us. Are there people buying? That's even better for us. And if they're buying, then they're making the seller's business, making them money, and obviously they want to keep using the platform, which is super positive for us. So everything we kind of prioritize from now moving forward is, how do we make one or both of those camps happy and move them forward? So how do we allow a seller to sell different things, sell more, sell faster, or at the end of the day, just like make it easier for them, so they're spending less time on the business administration and more on like the fun stuff, like which is the selling and moving product. And on the flip side, for buyers, like, do we have the right selection of cards for them? Is there, when they're buying, do they understand what they're doing? Are they happy with the shipping process? All of that stuff. And it all feels like super basic stuff. And it's easy when you're this early to feel like you haven't moved. Like you're just like stalling and you're like, oh, I'm working on shipping.
Yep.
Shipping is not a glorious feature to think about, but it's so important to the backbone, and obviously like communication and trust with both sides. So we're kind of at the point where, again, we're kind of done with phase 1. And I feel like at that point, we can really start scaling faster, both sellers and buyers. So as we kind of go along with those phases, you'll see us get a lot more aggressive on acquiring more sellers on the platform as well as more buyers. Because sometimes I've seen businesses scale too fast, too early.
Yeah.
And like, what happens if you do that and your infrastructure goes down? Now you've just lost the trust of all these users who are downloading your app expecting to buy and sell cards. So it's always a compromise of just trying to like make sure you're doing the right thing at the right time and not be impatient, because the moment you get impatient, you start overstepping and making mistakes, which is never good when you're when you're a platform like ours where the whole thing is trust and purchasing, it's a little different when you're a free social app like Twitter. Like you can go down and come back and nothing was impacted. But if we go down, we impact literally people's businesses, and we can't do that.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. That's very great feedback. It's funny because I was going to ask about the social aspect of this and just are people coming in and just chatting because I think of the future of where it could go, and you've already probably thought through this. I was on some Missouri Tigers message board the other day, and there was some comments, and I'm like, why are these guys commenting like this? And I realized they were trying to attain like statuses inside the forum because they commented, their level raised, and I'm like, the mentality of this social kind of world is just crazy where they just want to participate because it improves their status.
Yeah, sometimes when you gamify social interaction, it actually backfires because for the platforms, it looks good because you have X number of users doing Y number of interactions. And on paper, that looks amazing. But like you said, when you actually dive down and look at what interactions that gamification is driving, it's actually not valuable. Like they're just spewing out content for the sake of like hitting a check mark for the day or whatever. So you have to be really careful about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. From the seller's perspective, what feedback are you getting from some of the breakers that are figuring out, okay, hey, we're doing some of our breaks in Loupe. We were used to doing them in YouTube. Are you finding that they're shifting more over to Loupe because of X benefits, or is there still that struggle with which one makes the most sense?
It depends. So we've seen some who bring all of their business over to us, and some of them who, they have a community elsewhere, so they alternate between us and the other one. But for the most part, I'd say we're seeing more and more shift over to us, which is good because that's the whole point. We want to bring that value that we're bringing you new buyers, we're bringing you tools that you can't access on the other platforms. So yeah, and I think that's only going to continue over the next few months because again, we're taking all the feedback from the current sellers and using that to really, build out features just for them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What would you say is the feature or two that sellers come over and they're like, holy moly, this is game changing for us?
The one we hear the most, and it's something we've had since day one, which is the low latency. Buyers still to this day, like people will just download the app and then we'll be talking to them and they'll say, I still can't believe when I join a room, how fast I hear the sellers say, hey, so-and-so, like it's immediate and it catches them off guard every time because they're just they're not used to the fact that like sellers are now realizing that that's really important to greet somebody, but also the fact that there's just no latency. Like it's like having a normal conversation.
Oh, that's cool. I would have never thought that would be that much of a benefit, but it totally makes sense. It probably also helps just the experience in general, right? When you're opening cards and there's none of that hangover between opening, seeing a card, talking, and the reaction.
Yeah. People like a Tua card, like you immediately see people in all caps go Tua, or you go, hey, you bought one pack, there's two available, one or two. And like by the time you're done saying it, they've already typed in their answer and sent it to you. So you're not sitting there holding 2 packs of cards just waiting for the answer to come back to you.
No doubt. There's nothing worse than on YouTube watching a break and then seeing that Justin Herbert pulled. And then by the time comments come up, you're looking at Derek Carr on the screen. And it's like nothing, just awful experience.
It's like time travel. Yeah.
Yeah. What about from logistics? You mentioned the scanning of the USPS label. I think that's the fact that you can implement that in 20 minutes is mind blowing. First off, but what other logistic improvements do breakers see when they come over? I just want to give perspective to the people that are seeing this in the front end, how this is helping improve their experience overall.
We pay the next day, and the payment processing we use sometimes takes a day or two to get into your bank account, but it's super reliable. And that's something that we really hold close is like, you want to be paid as fast as possible. We're not, we brought you on for the fact that we trust you, that you are shipping the product you say you're shipping, and like there's no reason for us to hold your payment. Like you'll get it as fast as possible, usually calculated, like I said, the very next morning. And I think that's been really helpful in that fact that like, and it's me. I mean, right now it's just me. Like I literally wake up, I come to this computer, I calculate it, and I send the payment, and that's helped too. Just the consistency and the fact that it's like a personal touch, to the point where hopefully we can just automate that. But we've gotten that feedback too a lot from the sellers. It's just like, we've been super consistent since day one, and that's really important because again, it's their business. Like we need to make sure that they're running smoothly.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. There you go. Just Gandalf over there calculating the money, sending it off.
I have this orange calculator that I bought purposely because it matches Loupe's colors, and it's definitely gotten a workout.
That's so good. What's been your favorite card that you've seen pulled so far? Anything crazy on one of the breaks?
So when we did our press release for our fundraising, we included a video of fresh pulls who pulled a 1 of 10 gold to an auto. And, that was like, at that time, that was easily the biggest card we had on the service. It was a massive hit. For me personally, I don't have it out anymore. I have my table over here, and it was just like covered in cards.
Oh no!
A couple hours ago, and I put them up. I could have brought like a whole armful over probably and shown them off. I got a Cale Makar. That's hockey, and I'm not even a huge hockey fan. I'm just now like trying to get into it. But I got a rookie patch auto to 99 out of Upper Deck, the Cup, which is like their version of like National Treasures.
It's the best of the best, yeah.
And it was Brewmedic pulled that for me personally on Loupe, and there was definitely like, it almost seemed like the air got sucked out of the room for a second as he like was processing what he just pulled out of that box. So that was, I mean, sometimes it's not even necessarily how big the card is.
Yeah.
It's when somebody's a big fan, like when the seller is a big fan of that player or the sport in general, and you can tell the energy in the room has changed because like they're just so excited about it. That's always super fun to see.
That's awesome. You should have had that card ready to show. Gosh darn it.
I should have. I failed you.
Yes, no kidding. I was in line at the post office the other day, shipping some stuff that I sold on eBay, and the guy behind me, he's like, "Hey, I know what you got there. Those are Upper Deck shell boxes. That's the box that they ship a case in." And I'm like, "Yeah, they actually are." I had got some Upper Deck Series 1 hockey for the first time this year, first time ever opening hockey. And the guy was like, "Hockey's been crazy for us in Kansas City." He goes, "We literally get the cup in." And he goes, "We don't lift a finger, and we make 10x our money from a sealed box because it's that hot and that hard to get." It's like,
yeah, and
crazy. That put things in perspective really fast.
Yeah, and I didn't believe it until I saw I mean, obviously, I feel like hockey is an underserved market right now.
Yeah.
In the hobby, but on top of it, like if you're getting like a national treasure level box with like the super thick cards, you're getting guaranteed hits of certain types, and it's, I don't know, $1,000 or less. I mean, depending on where you buy it, sometimes it's a little over $1,000, sometimes less, but still, that's like top quality product if you're pulling like a good rookie out of that. And that's not even, we're only in the US right now. We do plan on releasing in Canada soon. And I can't even imagine what the demand for hockey is going to be once we open up in the Great White North.
No kidding. No kidding. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna open up all of the hockey collectors the second you go Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. I had to adjust my eBay policies and shipping because I had so many Canadian buyers wanting to buy the Upper Deck Series 1. Like, oh shoot, I don't normally ship. No one outside of Bo Bichette, no Canadian collectors typically care.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to go back real quick to Topshot because I wanted to ask you this question. Do you see an opportunity for breaking Topshot packs on like the Loupe app?
Yeah, totally.
Easy.
Totally. Yeah. We've already thought about, I don't want to give away too much, but I think when we look at the hobby, I think there's things that are adjacent to sports card hobby that are very obvious things. Like there's a huge overlap with Pokemon. Now there's Marvel cards. I mean, I have a bunch of sealed Dragon Ball Z cards in my closet, and I'm like, I just like things that I like in general, like franchises and IPs. I want to have cards because, I like the format, and, they're really easy to store when you live in an apartment and move a bunch. So I think there's that initial circle. And then beyond that, we're looking at things like Topshot and how can a platform like ours bring something of value to the digital / NFT markets. And I think there's totally a place for us. We definitely shouldn't rush it because it needs to feel genuine, and it needs to feel closer to a native experience, not like, oh, we thought this thing was valuable and now we're trying to jam it into Loupe, and hopefully people like it. So yeah, I think there's definitely a place. We just have to be smart about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It'll be interesting because I think there's a lot of opportunity with this intersection between a lot of these new technologies. I think of like platforms like StarStock, and you guys driving the evolution in the group breaks right now, and Topshot. Like how you guys start to work together will be really fascinating to see. Mm-hmm. Are you in communication with some of the other kind of peer CEOs and founders of other companies in the space?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's been fairly limited right now because I am so heads down in building that, like, my days already have way too many phone calls in them. So it's been limited, but we've talked to a couple others kind of like, either like mutually beneficial, like we'll get you more users in your system, we think if there's a Venn diagram of the two companies, there's a huge overlap, and people on both platforms should know of each other. And then there's some where it's, I'm kind of hesitant because I'm like, I could see them as potentially a competitor if I think about where we're going to build and what we're going to build. I obviously don't want to seem like I'm fishing for information. So, I try to be really careful and respectful about that. I've seen too many cases where people with ill intent reach out and they're like trying to get information, but they're smiling and looking like they're going to help you, and that's obviously not the case. In 6 months, you're like, oh, they're literally building the thing we were just talking about. Great. And then I'm talking to, like, obviously PSA is a big one.
Yep.
We're talking to some of the distributors and the supply companies, across the whole board. There's a lot of different ways we can bring value to collectors. And I think the closer relationship we have with all those companies, the better.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. As you were talking, it brought up another question. So this probably feels like a board level question, but I'm really curious, just from getting to know you, at what point do you start to pull back on development work and more of the CEO type job? It sounds like you're really into the development side of it. You have to.
And that's, apologies if I didn't make that clear. So I'm not a developer. So we have.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, we have an iOS dev, and we now have an Android dev who's obviously working on getting Android out. And they both kind of handle the back end as well, the services side. So we're going to be hiring a DevOps role to handle server redundancy, all that stuff exclusively. So the client developers can just work on the apps and not worry about more of building things from scratch on the back end. And we have a couple content guys, kind of marketing, PR, social media, blended roles. And my job really is, PR, doing interviews like this, fundraising, building the business and operations and planning all of that, and hiring, which hiring is like its own beast, and time consuming. And then just driving product in general and just making sure, we have a long roadmap, and every day there's like something new where whether myself or someone on our team is like, oh my God, I had this amazing idea. And, we have to go, okay, that's really cool. But again, what is our priority right now, and how much does it impact that? And if it's not very much, then it kind of goes on the shelf and we'll come back to it in a couple months. So most of my job is kind of like prioritization, communication, hiring. But even then, I think the next big role we're hiring for is a marketplace operations person who will come in and basically manage everything that's transactional on Loupe, as well as account management of the sellers and scaling up that program and how we do payouts. And that alone would take probably a third of my job away, which I will happily take. So we're really excited. We are still taking applications. So if anybody's out there that has experience with marketplaces, e-commerce, or even just general account management in a transactional market, we're definitely open to taking more resumes. And I should probably say this multiple times in any interview, but the easiest way to get a hold of us is support@loupetheapp.com. You actually have it up here, but LOUPE theapp.com. And I see every email that comes in through that. So if you're applying to be a seller, if you want to apply for a job, if you just have general feedback or questions, everything goes to that email right now.
Support@loupetheapp.com.
Yes.
Easy. You know what? I've been wanting to use this thing for a while. I'm going to do this right here.
I like how you enunciated it so much better than me. It's so like I have so many things backed up in my brain. I'm like, I have to say everything at once. And it's like loupetheapp.com.
Here it comes. Wait. Look at that.
Heyo. That's some production quality right there.
I know. Pretty impressive. For all the podcast listeners, I'm having a rolling ticker on the bottom of the screen, and it's really fascinating. Anyway, okay. All right. So I have a question about pandemic. You mentioned it earlier. Mm-hmm. It's transformed the hobby in a lot of positive ways from that perspective. What do you think is going to be tough as we start to roll out and get back to life as normal? It'll never be the same as it used to be, but do you think that will have a negative impact on just group breaks and the hobby and rolling over into kind of the success you're seeing in Loupe right now?
I think everything that we saw over the pandemic that helped the hobby, I think these were things that were going to happen regardless. I do think the pandemic accelerated it by probably 6 months to a year easily. Well, now it's been a year, maybe by a full year at this point. I think it definitely accelerated things. What I worry about is the retail situation, and I hear that a lot. Now, we consider ourselves less a breaking app when we look at holistically what is Loupe. We're more of like your online card shop where you can like interact with people and buy and interact with owners, and it's this social experience that has like technology layered on top of it. Yep. And I think we'll be okay. And I think there's a ton of continued growth to be had in that type of experience. And we have, again, a lot of things that I think people just will be stunned when they see it, because it's just, they're like, no one's thinking about it in this way, hopefully. But then I look at things like Target, where like people are going to Target to buy cards still, and there's a line of 20 people just hanging out, and they're hopefully doing limits of 2 or 3 items per person. And I don't know how that is sustainable. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend that I have a solution for it, because my solution was limit the number that each person gets. And, is that actually enforceable? Like how many people are actually like doing that? And, now I hear people are like trying to go to the stock rooms to like try to get a first dibs on these things. And I just don't know what, outside of a literal like local card shop, I don't know what the retail experience is going to be like over the next year. Given where it is now, I'm kind of scared for it. And some people are gonna be like, well, it's for the kids. And I have yet to see any photo where there's a child in that line. It's always a late 20 something or older standing in line. So it's going to be really interesting to see where that goes.
How do you think that impacts the hobby though? So are you saying that if retail, that whole channel starts to crumble, do you feel like the momentum in the hobby dies a little bit? Is that kind of where you're going with it?
I don't know if it's momentum. I think the attitude changes.
Okay.
I think people will get jaded, and that's not a feeling you should have about a hobby that brings you joy. And, it's natural. You're going to get people that want to flip, and there's going to be people who just want to buy it as fast as possible so they can break it because they love it. And both of those things existing at scale and growing are really good for the hobby as a whole, for sure. But in that very specific scenario where people like to go to the store and get that personal satisfaction, take it home and open it, I think you're just going to see that happen less and less. And there's going to be a subset of collectors who just become, I already see it a little bit, but they become incredibly jaded by it. And how do you redirect that energy in a positive way and go, look, the thing that you used to do isn't sustainable anymore. Like, do you really want to go to Target and wait 2 hours in line to get 2 boxes? Like, is that worth it to you? And how can, whether it's Loupe or it's something else that comes along, how do we redirect that negative energy into something positive and go like, you can't do that now, but you can still buy and sell cards and engage with other collectors in a positive way. And I know it's different, but at least you can still stay in the hobby, versus like getting frustrated at Target and going, I'm never going to buy cards again. So yeah, I think you're going to see that change over the next year or two.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think that is the big question, is how much can the hobby take? How much of that authenticity, the smell of the pack, the holding it in your hands, how much of that drives the overall depth of this hobby? I think what we saw was, like we talked about earlier, maybe the people that waited in line and got frustrated, now they flocked to Topshot. And you saw the last 7 or 8 days, like, it's not sustainable because it's not the same. It's just not the same. There's not that deep of a satisfaction in it outside of the dollar bill.
Yeah. And I know that we have a bunch of sellers on our platform who resell, but most of them have relationships with distributors. But I mean, I totally understand the frustration of, even like, if you're trying to buy a high-end product at a store and it's sold out, like, I can't say I'm surprised. What I'm really surprised by is the lower product, like, was it Gypsy Queen, or ANG.
Top Series 1 baseball out this week.
Yeah, but like, the lower end stuff that you generally think is like 5, 10, maybe $20.
Big league baseball.
Yeah, nothing fancy.
Right.
But what I'm floored by is the amount of people who hoard that at the store and then immediately go to eBay to flip it for like a $2 profit.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, is, you spent how much time waiting in line, getting the product, going home, putting on eBay to get a $2 profit. And that's where, I mean, for a lot of like economics and growth of a market, totally makes sense to me. And there's going to be growing pains and frustrations. But when I see that, that's where I'm like, something that doesn't add up to me, and I don't know how to process that when I see the lower end going for basically like retail on eBay from somebody that obviously just went out and like bought as much as they could.
Yeah, that to me is a really bad sign. And I've sold some Top Series 1 in baseball this past week, and I've gotten some notes from people, older collectors, who are just like, I can't believe that blaster boxes are going for 30. You know, when they've gone for $20 a year. I mean, every year for 30 years. You know, and what's this hobby become? It's just like they're seeing it from the perspective of a flipper going and getting it, not necessarily me, but somebody else going and getting it from the store, and they have to mark it up to cover the taxes they just paid at Target. Right. And it just, like you said, it jades them now, and they're frustrated, and it just kind of sours everybody around. The guy that flipped it, he did it all for $2. It's like,
and then you have to look at the economics of, you know, the demand is great, way more than the supply right now, which is driving up the value of individual cards and boxes. And it's, for a lot of people, that's great. And then, but if Topps or Panini was able to, let's say, double supply overnight, that'd be amazing. But then you'd see the value of a lot of these cards drop. And there's like a give and take, because there'd be a lot of people that would be happy that, oh, now I can get cards. But then all the people that are trying to like speculate and invest in high value cards,
waters them down,
and then they would be upset. So you can't please everybody, but I think it will get better. Like I said, I talk with my hands when I say this, but I think it's inflating. There's growing pains, and then you'll see it settle back down. And people, I think, will get back into the groove of things. It can't constantly be at 150 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah. No, that's good perspective. And I like the fact that you talk with hands. You're with your hands. It's great. It makes up for the reflection of your glasses.
For anybody that's just listening to the audio, they're like, how much is he talking with?
Once again, you're drawing more attention to yourself. You are a really good marketer. I'm impressed. All right. So got a couple questions, fun questions for you. So if you were to pick a director to direct the Loupe documentary 5-10 years from now, what director would you pick? And which actor would play you?
Oh, man. Scorsese, because I swear a lot. I'm good on interviews, but yeah, at home by myself in front of my computer, it's pretty bad. Also, not a lot of action, just drama all the time. Okay. Who would play me? Oh, man. Let's go back to like the 90s, and I'll say like a young Richard Gere.
Ooh.
Sound really sophisticated if I say that. Or Matthew Broderick.
Oh gosh. Two ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah.
Hey, that's better than like saying Schwarzenegger. Something completely not realistic.
Now it's an action film.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fighting off the lines in Target.
Jingle. He's already made the movies. Jingle All the Way.
Oh my God, yeah, Jingle All the Way, but for the hobby, that'd be amazing.
The Turbo PSA 10, Turbo Man PSA 10. All right, what if you were to pick one breaker who's not on Loupe right now, and he's on your site tomorrow doing breaks? Who would it be?
Jaspys.
Jaspys.
Yeah.
All right, you hear it, Jaspys. I'm going to specifically tag him in this video and make sure he knows to watch this section.
No, I think we're definitely looking at having a wide range of breakers and sellers on the platform. But when I think of people who do at scale and, you know, positive, and they have a good brand, Jaspys is definitely up there.
Okay. Are you a hot dog or a hamburger guy?
Hamburger all the way. Impossible Burger, though. This will dock me points with people, but I'm very transparent. I don't eat meat, but I love Impossible Burger. It's so good.
I'm with you. We have a lot of Impossible meat in our house right now.
Nice.
Once Costco started selling it, it was over.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think they sell Beyond Meat, so we have a lot of Beyond Meat.
Both of them are good.
Yeah, no doubt. What do you order at Starbucks?
Usually like a white mocha, nothing fancy. I like my drinks with a lot of sugar in them. I don't drink a lot of like straight coffee with creamer. Maybe when I'm home when I'm making it, but when I'm out buying coffee, it's like candy bar in a cup.
Okay. All right. Sound like my wife. She told me this morning, she's like, stop getting me straight black coffee. I need stuff with sugar in it. Like, all right.
Same. Yeah.
Get right to the point. Okay. Well, when are you going to get a shirt? By the way, Bench Clear shirt. Hello. How cool is this?
They're all the, how do I point? Which way? So I'm pointing again with my hands. That box right there is full of Loupe shirts. So I'll send you one.
What's your favorite adult beverage? Yeah, I'll send you one of these too. What's your favorite adult beverage?
Sorry, you like surprised. No, most things I can pick a pretty clean answer right away. You surprised me with that one. Pretty simple. I mean, I have a cognac out there right now. I drink just whiskeys. I'll drink pretty much any brown liquor in a glass with an ice cube is good with me.
What's like the whiskey? If you're gonna go grab a whiskey right now to drink, what's the brand you're grabbing?
I mean, Maker's Mark is like a good go-to. Also, they're really satisfying to open. It's so dumb. Like the bottle should never matter when you're drinking alcohol, but like pulling the little wax ring off, I don't know, man. It's like a little experience after you buy it. So
it's why people buy Apple products, the experience of opening it.
Hey, boutique packaging has made a huge impact in the last 10 years of product design.
No, you're right. And in fact, I put a video out today on our YouTube channel about just grading and hybrid and PSA and BGS, and talked about just the aesthetics of hybrid grading slabs and why people are paying so much more for like how cool they look. It actually does matter. It's crazy.
I think it does. I think the different grading companies kind of impact different parts of the hobby. So if you're going to like straight high-end speculation, you're going to go PSA, you're going to go BGS. But if you just want your card slabbed and for it to look cool as hell, like hybrid has like nailed that. Like the labels are super cool looking.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, well, we covered just about everything. We talked about ecological impacts. We've talked about your roadmap 14 years from now. And now we just closed it out by talking about cool slabs. So it's been really fun talking to you, man. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's second time now. It's a blast. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you got it. Have a good week. We'll see you.
You too.